Hey lovelies, Esther here with just a quick video featuring 3 decks that I think are undersung. Now, we're living through this kind of extraordinary, unprecedented golden age of tarot when like every week almost is bringing forward a spate of new mass-produced decks, of new indie decks coming out through Kickstarter or Indiegogo or just through social media, where if you have an idea for a deck, nothing is easier than to upload some images and to produce your own deck through make playing cards or drive-through cards or any of those uh, websites. It's so easy and so available to get the 78 into your hands. And so in that kind of supercharged tarot marketplace, it's very easy for us to have like the collective memory of a fruit fly and for really even quite recently produced decks to fall out of view. So I'm just wanting to bring forward some older tarot decks from an older tarot artist, an older tarot reader, starting with Siolo Thompson's Linestrider Tarot. Which is a deck that came out independently first. I have that edition, and actually the mass-produced edition, other than the card stock, is quite extraordinary. And this is a deck. Let me see if I can get the lighting a little bit better here. This is a deck that just beautifully uses white space, evocatively uses watercolor and minimal line, that has this kind of, to my mind, a sort of Les Mis kind of mid-19th century appeal to it. And there's a kind of weird Victor Hugo sort of, I don't know what it is, some of the images, we'll see when we get there. Something like that. There's the world, it's so beautiful. And very constrained color palette. Lots of animals. She herself talks about, that devil card's really interesting. Yeah, this is one of the really Les Mis oriented cards. Interesting tower. She talks about this deck as striding like the line. It's a deck that dances on the edge of magic and logic, animal and human, the conscious and unconscious mind, drawing inspiration from the edge while still moving forward on the fool's journey. That is line striding. And the idea of like drawing inspiration from the edge while still moving forward, striding the line, moving between the visible and the invisible. I love this Nine of Cups, the cat that ate the canary. And some of the cards are wiser and deeper than other cards. Here's another sort of Les Mis-ish looking card. I think the Pentacles have that quality to them. I love this Page of Cups. Oops. Keep that in focus. So one of my, even when she's doing something that's kind of cliche at this point, associating the Pentacles with things like rabbits, it's still fresh. Look at that Ten of Wands. And this huge spaciousness of these cards, this way that they really invite the rising forward of the intuition. I love the backs. This is one of the very few decks that I know where the mass-produced version is preferable to the independent version. The backs with this Rorschach watercolor, just gorgeous. This is probably one of my favorite cards in the deck, the Nine of Swords. The card that many of us think of as the nightmare card, if you can picture the Rider-Waite imagery here. And I just love what she says. I'm looking here at, I don't have the book in front of me, but I have the Fool's Dog app. So one of the nice things about this deck too is if you own this deck in its actual hard copy, then you can also easily have the Fool's Dog app at your beck and call as well. Okay, Nine of Swords. The Nine of Swords is sometimes called the Nightmare card. No other card so specifically speaks to the kind of anxiety, insomnia, and physical cost that worry can have on our bodies and lives. Is something keeping you up at night? Is your mind racing a mile a minute? Instead of a human woman in bed, I used a fox on my illustration of this card. The fox looks up at the night sky with a haunted look on her face. She has forgotten that foxes are nocturnal and the night is their natural place. Humans often rise to their fullest potential in times of adversity. This is your night. Try to embrace it. I love that idea of the fox's anxiety. She's forgotten that she's nocturnal, right? She's forgotten that the night is her natural place. So the Linestrider Tarot, in many ways a card like the Nine of Swords, which is all about the liminal, the threshold between day and night, between dream and nightmare, between dream and waking life, between terror and freedom. In many ways, that card is a perfect card to illustrate what this deck is all about, in its spaciousness, in its sense of, in its sense of open discovery. This Eight of Cups, also brilliant, and a much deeper, in my mind, illustration for this card than was the illustration she chose in the original version, in the self-produced version. Linestrider Tarot, Siolo Thompson, a Seattle artist. Highly dig it. And then Maggie Stiefvater's Raven Prophecy deck. Oh my God, this deck. This deck is, you know, not everyone's favorite. The swords in this deck are all hands. They've got tattoos on some of them. This is the same hand that we see in the Magician card for this deck. And it's a reference actually to one of the central figures in Maggie Stiefvater's book Raven Cycle, the Raven Boys Cycle. The Raven Cycle? The Raven Boys is the first book. These are young adult novels about magic and teens and emancipation. And the thing about these cards is, if you've read the books, the imagery makes sense to you. If you haven't read the book, the imagery also can make sense to you. But it perhaps makes a little bit more sense when you've read the book. For instance, each of the suits, I love that the suits have their traditional names, but they also have a symbolism that comes out of the book. So for instance, the suit of cups has ravens all through it, right? You see the feather here. The suit of swords has these hands. Now, you know, if you think about cups as being the suit of water, why are there birds in it? But it's because of the way in which the ravens in the books have to deal with the world of imagination, the world of dream, the world of magic and intuition. So that's why they're related to the cups. Wands have a lot of fire imagery in them, which makes sense. A lot of forest imagery in the major arcana that relates again to the books, but you don't need to have read the books to understand this imagery. Like, look at this card for the Six of Swords. The Six of Swords, so much about being able to move out of adversity into calmer waters, the ways in which this card also allows us to see, with water passing from the hands, that sort of, you know, act of cupping water in our hands, water dripping through the hands. It allows us to get that sense of moving on, of passing through, of finding calmer seas. I just love also her artwork and the color palette. You know, I'm a woman who loves her oranges, and I love ravens. You know. The coins, she doesn't call them pentacles, she calls them coins, which I quite like. A lot of flower imagery, roses, roses with their thorns, which is really powerful, I think, to get both the beauty and the sting of pentacles. The Ten of Swords. Hands are the imagery in the suit of swords, so to have this skeleton. I love this as an image for the Hierophant. The light brought forward. The image for the Hermit, if we come across it. Oh, and the Fool. This is a reference to the central character in the book. There's that Magician card. The image for the Hermit, very, very difficult Three of Swords card, is the light hidden. Let's see if I can find it really quickly. Oh, this is a very cool High Priestess card referencing the way scrying appears in the book. So if you know the books, you'll go, oh yeah, okay, I get it now. Why is this the imagery? But if you don't know the books, oh, I like the Seven of Swords. If you don't know the books, they also work. So this has got to be one of my favorite Page of Cups. I love it. I keep wanting to show you the Hermit, and I keep not finding it. Here we go. So the Hermit, right, is that same lantern of the Hierophant, but it's interior now as opposed to brought forward into the exterior space. It's a super smart deck. It doesn't read, I would not say this deck reads extremely intuitively if you don't know the Waite-Smith imagery. If you do know the Waite-Smith imagery, then the way in which Maggie Stiefvater has altered the deck, altered that imagery, is super inspiring and interesting. Okay, last deck. I'm just going to pause because I've got to close the window. Oh, okay, hopefully that's not too noisy in the background. It's a beautiful day, so mowing of lawns is happening. The last deck is it's the oldest one that I'm showing, but it's still in print, is Tarot de Marseille deck put forward by Fournier, Spanish tarot card company. And all the Fournier decks, some of you may be familiar with the recently produced Cat Tarot. Is that what it's called? I think that's what it's called. I'll put the information in it. And this is a really cute deck. I love this deck. Haven't played that much with it, just received it a few weeks ago. That's Seven of Wands. Oh my God. But as people have noted, like, oh yeah, the cards, they're not normal tarot size. All Fournier decks are like that. They're all these sort of thinner, right? Thinner than normal. If normal is what we're used to in English-speaking countries, as influenced by U.S. games and Llewellyn. Okay, but I digress. So the Tarot de Marseille of Fournier. This deck, first of all, I love their cardstock. I just love it. And I like a thinner deck. It's fun. They fit so nicely in the hand. They're easy to shuffle, easy to manipulate. And this deck, I mean, it's just the Convert, the 1760 tarot, very familiar, not a whole lot of divergences from it. But the color palette is awesome. And it's really easy to read. You know, just some beautiful, look at that. I mean, is that freaking gorgeous, the moon? It's easy to read the way in which there's the use of color really highlights the archetypal imagery. Each of the suits is color-coded, so the suit of discs has this kind of yellow background, denier, right? The suit of wands has this luscious green. Look at this wonderful devil. It sort of at first glance has the kind of Lululemon devil where you're like, is he wearing leggings or are those his legs? But then it's a little bit X-rated. You can see his genitalia. So there you go. I love this Papus star. So there's a shading, there are three-dimensional images. So for those who really are turned off by the woodblock nature of that sort of flat incised nature of the Tarot de Marseille, this might be a good way to have a Tarot de Marseille that's relatively, I love this orangey peach color, that's relatively traditional, but aesthetically more pleasing. I love the blue of the swords. Yeah, so the Fournier Tarot de Marseille Undersung tarot deck, widely available, not expensive, wonderful cardstock. That Fournier, I like that backing too, very simple. That Fournier shape, that form factor, the sort of almost as tall as what we're used to for a tarot deck, but decidedly skinnier. Okay, there you have it. Undersung tarot. Yeah, make friends with these older cards. Ding. Thank you all. As always, thank you so much for your practice. Take good care.